Welcome to this edition of Weather to Watch. It's the 28th of May, 2025. Rain seems to be shifting north next week. Still some patches of severe weather, a tropical weather system in the Pacific, and more. A really pretty picture across the U.S. looking at the visible satellite. This completely depends on reflected light off a cloud, so it gives you what you would see if you were in orbit. This is how it would look. It's not using infrared, which is how we see clouds at night. It's just as it appears. So we see just an abundance of interesting patterns like cirrus clouds blowing off of thunderstorms and the jet stream down there in Arkansas, cumulus clouds bubbling up there in Missouri, more thunderstorm complexes forming in this part of the world, Colorado, Kansas, an elongated area of low pressure, which I can show you right now, actually. And that's in the upper atmosphere, 500 millibar flow, this long area of low pressure. Generally speaking, this is just one big trough of low pressure in the central plain. So the winds are circulating at 500 millibars just like that. So we just have these little tiny disturbances rotating around. As they come around the bend, they manage to tap whatever moisture is available to them. And this round will survive, and it'll be here tomorrow, and then it'll be here tomorrow. And when you see in the severe weather outlooks coming up in a minute, the forecasts look a lot like that. A cool front stretches from Ohio down to the central part of Louisiana and Texas, becomes stationary, and it kind of winds its way up through just over the front range of the Rockies and back over the Rockies here. Very weak weather systems, really, and high pressure controls the northern plains right in here, and that's where we're going to find our rarefied air. If we check the station models here, so Sioux Falls is sitting at a comfortable 65 degrees. Minneapolis is only 59. It's barely 60 in places like Chicago, for instance, and Green Bay. And look at how dry the air is up here, with dew points still in the upper 30s around Duluth. I believe that's Marquette, Michigan, and the UP there, and in the low 40s across parts of South Dakota. So that's really quite different than this air mass, where we go down to Florida, and dew points are sweltering in the mid-70s down around Miami, where the temperature is 85. Tampa's as hot as 83 degrees here late this afternoon. And you can find the moist air that finds the tropical air. So when you see these dew points in the 70s and 60s, which pretty much covers this map, that's where the warm tropical air is located, and it's pretty much going to be stuck there until that upper level trough I showed you finally leaves the building. Let's do a quick radar check. We're going down to Texas and mostly Louisiana, where we have an active area of showers and thunderstorms rumbling, especially through southern Louisiana, in an area where we could get a few severe thunderstorms, but the main threat was actually a little bit deeper into Texas. Some of these cells here could be pretty severe. And then we'll just kind of make a tour up here, up to the northwest, and see some thunderstorms developing there right around the intersection of the panhandles of Texas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico, and maybe southeast portions of Colorado too. A couple of storms developing there. That was also in a risk area for today. So there could be some severe thunderstorms with that activity, some supercells already developing as we look at it. Advisories in the southern plains include a tornado watch in effect for eastern Colorado and parts of southwest Kansas. Severe thunderstorm watch on the backside of that. Severe thunderstorm watch is also in central Texas and southern Mississippi. And all these little green areas here are river flood warnings, which some of these in Arkansas have been in effect practically all spring. It's really been wet. Let's take a look at the severe weather outlook for today. Not surprisingly, we have all these areas, kind of blotchiness, and this is exactly where we showed you all the watches and warnings here today, central Texas. It's coming out just as the forecasters thought this morning and also revised this afternoon. There is that tornado threat right smack dab where the tornado watch was placed. Also, there's a smaller chance, 2% chance within 25 miles there in central Kansas. I just figured I'd show you the latest, tornado count for 2025. We're sitting at 1,018 tornadoes and running, and there may be a couple here the next couple of days, and it's going to quiet down. Then it's really going to ramp up. If you were wondering what the climatology is on any severe weather, this is the period 1982 through 2011. right centered around May 27th. The maximum is supposed to be in Oklahoma. So this, of course, is just an average. But if we just take a look back at all the years, that's where the most severe weather has occurred. This naturally begins to shift north with time as we get into June. If you want a more complete severe thunderstorm outlooks production, I do that video every morning. You'll see how the activity shifts a little bit tomorrow, which is Thursday into Friday, and then it quiets down and then it ramps up once again. So over the next 7 days, there are really kind of 3, maybe 4 hot spots for rain. One is in a semi-dry area there around the nation's capital, Philadelphia, almost up to New York, down to Norfolk. Then across these very southern Gulf coastal area, there's a couple of blotchy areas. If you're looking at the color coding, so purple is roughly about 2 to 2.5. You start seeing some of these red colors, it's 3. So I'm circling Kansas as another little hot spot for rain, and also parts of Montana and maybe around Yellowstone and into Wyoming. If we look out more, the government issues a heavy rain hazard forecast. So they're saying May 30th through June 3rd, which is coming up here in a couple of days. The northern plains, where I just showed you, Montana, the Dakotas, have a risk for heavier rain. Also parts of New England with that upper level low, and South Florida also in that area. And then from June 4th to the 10th, just moving ahead a couple of days, the heavy precipitation threat shifts to Iowa, parts of Missouri and Kansas and Nebraska, Minnesota, and a good chunk of Wisconsin. Well, late this afternoon, Tropical Disturbance 1E has formed in the eastern Pacific. It should be a tropical storm. Alvin would be the name by tonight. This is a Pacific storm. There's nothing of any significance, I don't think, in the Atlantic over the next 7 days. Some hints beyond that, but it's kind of hard to pin down anything there. And I want to show you this. This is the drought monitor. They'll refresh this tomorrow, but it's still pretty valid now. Some of the driest locations in the country are New Mexico and parts of southwest and south central Texas. I show that to you because sometimes you might get excited with these tropical systems. So if we show you the GFS idea, what Alvin will do, it's centered right here. This is precipitable water. So how much water is in a depth of a column if you could just remove it? So I wouldn't necessarily pay attention to the deepening on this, but the track is what I'm looking at. And the precipitable water is high. The only problem is, watch what happens toward the end of its life here. It gets up against the western mountains of Mexico and spreads out and does not go this way where it's needed. So here's the drought area that I just showed you. And unfortunately, that particular weather system I don't think is going to do much to bring heavier rains to that part of the world. However, the Gulf itself is activating during this time. So that is maybe some hope that it will start to rain in some of those areas a little bit more. Let's look at some 500 millibar flow forecasting. This is the GFS Ensemble. This is the American version of the Ensemble. Ensemble is when they run the same conditions and tweak them a little bit and see what kind of different outliers they get and then take a mean of that. 500 millibar flow, just a good flow to look at. It's halfway through the meaningful part of the atmosphere, so it reflects both the jet stream and what might be happening at the surface. So we still have this elongated area of low pressure in the Midwest, just north of the Corn Belt there. That's slowly beginning to wear off. All the severe weather has been around the southern branch of this jet stream here, and it's been pretty weak, so you get little flare-ups once in a while, especially in Texas, but not much is happening. Certainly the stronger jet stream flow has left the building at least for a while. But let's move this forward. So that was basically today. So if we go forward here, I'll just look off to my side here. This is Saturday morning. Look at this huge trough of low pressure that digs itself out in the eastern U.S. So what this basically does is a couple of things. First of all, the jet stream separates warm from cold air. So everything basically here is going to be abnormally cool. You'll see that reflected in my extended temperature forecast here in a minute. Everything out in the plains here, the wind is coming off over the Rockies. It's sinking, it's drying, it's warming. So it's actually quite mild out through here and very dry. This kind of flow pattern completely cuts off the main moisture source for the central U.S., which is moisture that evaporates off the Gulf. So that is not really allowed to return north, or it can, but it usually does so way off to the west here. And we have this cutoff system here as well. So we got lots of interesting features to contend with. So that's the beginning of the weekend. Let's go through early next week here. So this right here is midday on Monday. Now we're starting to get an opposite pattern. There's a ridge of high pressure right here in the central U.S., so things are going to be still dry and warming up. And then we have signs of a nose of a jet stream coming ashore. If you watch severe weather, you know that could be trouble. We already have a leading sort of shortwave coming out of New Mexico. So if enough moisture can interact with this, we'll get some severe weather early next week. And if you want, watch my everyday produced severe weather video. It'll talk about that in a little more detail. So anyway, let's keep going here. So we go through next week. Now we still see this trough of low pressure developing out here. I went a little too far. So here's Wednesday. So we still have little waves circulating around the flow. We got one here, we got another one here, and maybe another one here. So yeah, there's going to be rounds of severe weather, but the whole thing has been shifted a little more to the north. So Oklahoma might be included in this, but this is more getting into the turf now of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska, Colorado, Wyoming, even. That's the kind of pattern we're setting up here. And then we'll just one more thing here. We'll go a little more into the future. This is about a week away. So we still have a pretty strong jet stream flow here. So as long as you have that going and you have any unstable area underneath or near that at all, you're probably going to get some chances for severe storms. This is a ridge of high pressure, so warm and dry finally in the southeast. Let's take a look at the high temperature patterns. The cooler, below normal temperatures are in green and blue. That just dominates the central and much of the eastern U.S. for tomorrow. Meanwhile, Idaho is really hot with low 90 showing up there in parts of Montana, parts of Nevada as well. Here's the National Weather Service high temperature departure and forecast for Saturday. The cool air begins to shift east a little bit more with near 100-degree heat across parts of the Intermountain region and in the valleys of central California. It will do just that, get above 100 degrees. Meanwhile, Buffalo, New York will only have a high of 61 on Saturday, and much of the southeast is going to be below normal. Then we go ahead 2 more days to Monday. The heat begins to build across the northern plains. This is all in anticipation of a ridge developing here in the upper atmosphere and a trough developing here. And you can almost find those features when you look at the temperature pattern. It's amazing how that works. Let's go a little bit further ahead. Days 6 through 10. This is Monday through Friday. Above normal temperatures in Wisconsin and much of the Great Lakes and parts of the Corn Belt, and in Florida and South Texas, with again that cooler air becoming the rule, where that trough is starting to develop out west. And then we have the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook is centered over Utah, with much of the northern plains, as I showed you in that hazard map, receiving a good chance of above normal precipitation, along with Florida. Pretty dry in the mid-Atlantic region. And then finally, the June forecast for the entire month of June is warm across almost all of the country, with the highest probability of it being warmer than normal in Arizona and New Mexico, and dry out that way. The June forecast has a little bit weighted chance of it being a little dry in Denver, in Idaho, and Wyoming, whereas from Chicago on eastward, including Atlanta and everything on the eastern seaboard, looks like it will be just a small chance of being above normal on precipitation in the month of June. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.